China reopens its embassy in Nicaragua as both nations look forward to closer friendship and cooperation. "2021 closes with more than twice the number of COVID-19 cases reported in 2020. The world's largest free trade agreement, signed by 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, enters into force. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. China looks forward to closer friendship and cooperation with Nicaragua after the reopening of the Chinese embassy in Managua. On Friday, the Chinese embassy in Nicaragua held a solemn reopening ceremony with the attendance of all Chinese diplomats dispatched to Nicaragua, the Nicaraguan government officials, VIPs from various sectors in the country, representatives of local Chinese institutions and communities, as well as representatives of foreign missions in Nicaragua. The resumption of diplomatic ties between China and Nicaragua serves the fundamental and long-term interest of both sides and is welcomed and supported by the two peoples, according to the spokesperson. In Mexico, fathers and mothers of the missing youths from Ayotzinapa lamented the little process in the investigations during 2021. For the coming year, they will maintain their demands for the truth and justice and the mobilizations they carried out every month. Our correspondent, Eduardo Martinez, gives us an update on this emblematic case.
Bautista refuses to give up her struggle to know the truth about what happened on the night of September 26, 2014, when municipal police in Iguala, Guerrero, disappeared 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Normal School, including her son Benjamin.
Wherever they are, may the Virgin Mary protect them. May God give us health, so that we may continue to demand an explanation, but also so that they know that we will not rest until we find them.
She regrets the slowness of the investigations in the Attorney General's office and the silence of the Mexican Army, an institution that he assures has valuable information.
They do know where they left our children, to whom they handed them over. They have not wanted to give us all the information because we have pointed out the Army, they managed the C4, they took pictures, they took videos.
Of the 43 students have been mobilized for more than 7 years. 3 died with the uncertainty of not knowing the fate of their young. Those who have accompanied the relatives of the Normalista victims of forced disappearance recognize the will of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, but demand that channels be open with the agencies that have in their hands the execution of new arrests, warrants, and the extension of statements of protected witnesses.
One of the detainees was El Caderas, to be exact. There are indications that he could have been killed during the arrest. That is to say, the excessive force was used and this resulted in his death. And for us, this is extremely serious because he was a very important witness and could have contributed a lot to the investigation. However, a serious omission by the Attorney General's office resulted in his death.
López Obrador assures that the clarification of the case is a priority for his government, as well as the punishment of those materially responsible and those who obstructed the investigation, such as Tomás Cerón, former director of the Criminal Investigation Agency exiled in Israel.
There are instructions not to hide information, not to protect anyone, and all the federal government institutions are helping. The Army is handing over the files. The investigators are having access to them.
During 2021, the remains of another student were identified, making a total of 3. In October, the executive ordered the disclosure of the contents of the conversations between those responsible for the disappearance of the young people with several officials and people involved in the event.
Eduardo Martínez, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
Now we continue. In Cuba, this January 1st, the country commemorates the 63rd anniversary of the triumph of the revolution, considered one of the most influential models of resistance and social struggle in Latin America and the world. The Cuban Revolution achieved, on January 1, 1959, the fall of the dictator Fulgencio Batista's regime and the coming to power of the leader of the rebel army, Fidel Castro Ruz. The Cuban process transformed the dependence of the United States and made possible the beginning of enormous changes in the life of people and also of the nation in a very difficult stage, full of new combats, challenges and difficulties. Since the triumph of the revolution, the United States has continually tried to undermine the socialist government, but the determination of the Cuban people has prevented it. In Argentina, on the evening of December 30th, forest fires were reported in 11 of the 23 provinces that make up the national territory. On Thursday afternoon, fires could be found in several provinces of the country. Local and national authorities are considering whether it is necessary to evacuate the population because winds of 80 kilometers per hour facilitates the expansion of the flames throughout the western region of Patagonia. In view of the critical situation, the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development declared on Tuesday a national fire emergency for 1 year due to the extreme risk of forest and pasture fires, while some 300 brigadiers and 17 air vehicles are working hard to control the fires in areas of the Nahuel Huapi National Park, the Andean region, and Alumine. Uruguay closes 2021 amid drought and forest fires in several regions of the country. The authorities indicated that they received around 40 calls related to forest fires in different parts of Montevideo and the metropolitan area. The firemen explained that the most affected areas in the region is Rio Negro, where the flames consumed between 15,000 and 3,000 hectares. Soldiers, helicopters and trucks were mobilized to the locality to extinguish the fire. The situation occurs in the midst of the agricultural emergency declared by the executive due to the drought in rural areas. This Friday in the United Kingdom, the temperature reached 15.3 degrees centigrade, making it the hottest New Year's Eve in the country's history. According to the British Meteorological Service, the high temperature was recorded in the town of Coningsby, surpassing the previous record of 14.8 degrees centigrade reported in 2011. It is forecast that temperatures could continue to rise during the day and the upcoming days and affect cities in the east and south of the nation, including the capital, London. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The year 2021 closed with a number of 198 million confirmed cases of COVID-19, meaning more than twice the figure reported in 2020, which was 83 million. According to data from the World Health Organization, 3.5 million people died in 2021, 84% more than the 1.9 million deaths in 2020. The figures, while still very high, show a decline in coronavirus-related fatalities, which was 2.2% in 2020 and 1.7% in 2021. It is also expected that the progress of vaccination and the lower death rate shown by the Omicron variant will be reflected in a reduction of cases and deaths during 2022. This could mark the end of the acute stage of the pandemic, in the words of the WHO Director Tedros Adhanom. In Argentina, this Saturday, the mandatory health pass with a complete anti-COVID-19 vaccination schedule came into force and will be demanded at mass events. In the midst of the rise in statistics of new infections, the measure applies to all citizens over 13 years of age who engage in activities predefined as high epidemiological risk, such as attending bars and nightclubs, group trips, or events with more than 1,000 people. In the last week of 2021, the nation registered more than 50,000 new cases in a single day, the highest number since the beginning of the pandemic. According to official figures, 65.5% of Argentinians are fully vaccinated. South Africa overcomes the peak of the COVID-19 wave of the Omicron variant without a significant increase in fatalities. South Africa, the country where the new variant of COVID-19 was detected in November, announced on Thursday night that it had overcome the peak caused by Omicron without noticing a significant increase in the number of fatalities. In view of the improvement in the health situation, the presidency reported the lifting of restrictions, such as the night curfew in force for 21 months, on the eve of the New Year's celebrations. In the last week, new infections dropped by almost 30% compared to the previous week, while hospital admissions decreased in 8 of the 9 provinces. The government of India announced that it sent a new shipment of anti-COVID-19 vaccine this Saturday in solidarity with the people of Afghanistan. The shipment of 500,000 vaccines is part of a humanitarian aid program aimed at mitigating the effects of the crisis that the Central Asian nation is going through after 20 years of war imposed by the United States. New Delhi informed that in the coming weeks it will send another 500,000 vaccines, cereals and essential medicines to Kabul in coordination with United Nations agencies. And Europe marks 20 years since the introduction of its community currency this Saturday. The euro began to circulate among the citizens of Europe and the world on January 1, 2002. The project was devised in the 70s as a tool for the integration of the European bloc, inhabited by 340 million people, and according to the financial institutions, it is a consolidated and representative currency of the continent. Bulgaria, Croatia, and Romania are expected to adopt the euro as their national currencies in the next few years. European authorities announced that they are working on the launch of a digital euro to ensure the future of the continent in the new times. This Saturday, new post-Brexit custom rules for goods arriving from the European Union to Britain are taking effect. A leading food industry body has warned that the new border controls could lead to food shortages. Beginning on January 1st, importers must make a full customs declaration on goods entering the UK from the EU or other countries. Businesses will no longer be allowed to delay completing full import customs declarations for up to 175 days, a measure that was introduced to cope with the disruption of Brexit. The new measures require businesses to complete the correct paperwork at least 4 hours before goods can arrive at the UK borders, or they risk being turned back at their border. Animal and plant-based products must also have statements of origin certificates. Northern Ireland and Ireland are exempt from the changes as political leaders continue negotiating the Northern Ireland Protocol. This Saturday, 446 asylum seekers arrived at a port in southern Italy after being rescued by an European NGO. Several of the asylum seekers had been previously evacuated from humanitarian reasons, since they required medical attention. The German organization Sea Watch, responsible for the initiative, explained that the rescue was carried out in 5 different maneuvers during the last week, and this Saturday, finally, they received authorization from the Italian authorities to disembark. According to the United Nations, 66,000 refugees arrived in Italy by sea from Africa and the Middle East in 2021. And the Pope Francis used his New Year's message on Saturday to issue a call for an end of violence against women, saying it was insulting to God. Pope Francis was speaking at the New Year's Day Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, dedicated to the Holy Mary. The pontiff presided over the Mass and blessed the statue of the baby Jesus. The Mass homily was focused on the role of the Holy Mary as a woman and a mother after the birth of Jesus Christ. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began nearly 2 years ago, Francis has several times spoken out against domestic violence, which has increased in many countries since lockdowns left many women trapped with their abuses.
How much violence there is against women. Enough. To hurt a woman is to outrage God, who created humanity from a woman.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The world's largest free trade agreement, signed by 15 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, entered into force on January 1, 2022. After more than a decade of negotiations, the China-led mega-treaty, known as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, entered into force. The treaty is effective this Saturday in Australia, Brunei, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos, New Zealand, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. On February 1st, South Korea will join it, and it will still be ratified by Myanmar, the Philippines, and Indonesia and Malaysia. The RCEP addresses trade in goods and services in the digital economy, intellectual property, and trade disputes, among other issues. The Ministry of Commerce of China welcomed the entry into force of the treaty and stated that it will help boost trade between China and other member countries of the initiative.
The RCEP will also boost investment, growth for regional trade, optimize regional division of labor and cooperation, and strengthen regional industrial chains and supply chains. It will play a significant role in stabilizing foreign trade and investment in China.
And amid a global race to dominate the technology and innovation sector, China unveiled a plan to boost its spheres of robotics and smart manufacturing with the aim of reaching or surpassing international levels in the development and innovation of key robotic technologies, and to double the presence of robots in manufacturing in the next 3 years. The populous country is betting on the use of robots to consolidate its economic rises by 2025. According to a new plan published by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the Asian country aims to reach international standards in the development and innovation of key robotic technologies and to double the presence of robots in manufacturing in the next 3 years. While China's abundance of labor has offered comparative advantages over the past decades, Beijing does not want to be left behind in what some are calling the fourth industrial revolution, led by robots and the advance of artificial intelligence.
Innovation, robotics, and smart manufacturing will be key to China in the coming years. At present, we have built 21 innovation centers and 203 innovation provinces dedicated to effectively upgrading industrial and factory systems and increasing the supply capacity of technologies in key areas.
The strategy comes at a time when countries such as the United States, Germany, and Japan are also pushing to boost smart manufacturing and achieve leading positions in a sector that is set to dominate in the future. With this project, China wants more than 70% of its large enterprises to be fully digitized by 2025, and the value added of industries in the digital economy to be 10% of the national GDP, compared to 7.8% today. The plan also promises to strengthen research on key technologies such as artificial intelligence, 5G, big data, among others, areas where China has comparative advantages over other world powers. China is already one of the world's hub for robotic manufacturing and innovation, but authorities hope that the Asian giant will also be able to lead in the creation of patents and innovation with its own technologies, breaking its dependence on the West and bringing technology to new areas of society. Now we move on to other topics. At least 12 people have died and 13 were injured in a stampede at a religious shrine in Indian-administered Kashmir. Initial investigations suggested an altercation between a group of devotees led to the crash early Saturday at the Mara Vaishnav Devi Shrine, where tens of thousands of Hindus gathered to pay their respects in the hilly town of Kara, near southern Jammu city. According to reports, authorities were quick to respond and the order within the crowd was immediately restored. The pilgrimage resumed after nearly 4 hours, and officials said an investigation is underway.
I express my condolence to the families who have lost their dear ones in the sad incident of the stampede at Mara Vaishnav Devi Shrine. My sympathies to those who are injured.
South Africa said farewell on Saturday to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the last great hero of the struggle against apartheid, in a funeral stripped of pomp but freighted with glowing tributes. Tutu died last Sunday at the age of 90, triggering grief among South Africans and tributes from world leaders for a life spent fighting injustice. Famous for his modesty, Tutu gave instructions for a simple, no-frill ceremony with a sheep coffin, donations for charity instead of floral tributes, followed by an eco-friendly cremation. President Cyril Ramaphosa accorded Tutu a funeral usually reserved for presidents. Family, friends, clergy and politicians gathered at Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral, where for years Tutu used the pulpit to rail against a brutal white minority regime. That is where he will be buried.
Our beloved Madiba was the father of our democracy. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was the spiritual father of our new nation. His was a life lived honestly and completely. He has left the world a better place. And he has left our country a much better place than we were prior to our democracy. We remember him with a smile.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at TeleSURenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also Telegram. From TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.